Hey guys, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and this is going to be an extended gameplay feature on the STA-2. This is the Tier 8 Japanese medium tank that was introduced into the game in patch 9.6. Now if you've watched my full review on this tank, which you can find up using the cards icon in the top right hand corner of your screen, you'll know that I thought this tank, it was pretty mediocre really. I didn't really like the fact that its mobility was rather poor, and the 185mm of penetration on its 90mm gun, I just didn't really cut it for me, including the mediocre armor, and the fact that you do have this rather large cupola on top of the vehicle. However, in patch 9.9, this vehicle was buffed. So what changed about this tank? Well, the ground resistance is improved massively by roughly about 20%. Now, what are ground resistances, you might be asking? I thought that only engine power mattered in this game compared to the weight of the vehicle. Well, there are also hidden statistics that wargaming don't present you in the garage unless you are using some kind of custom modification. And so by improving the ground resistances by 20%, this vehicle became so much better, especially off-road. And it became more of a medium tank rather than the sluggish, fat Japanese snail that it was previously. And so that allows you to get into positions faster and to use cheeky positions like you see me using here to be able to get shots that would at least take you longer to be able to do so previously. Now this tank does have some serious strengths, however. If you're unfamiliar with this vehicle, its rate of fire is 8.45 rounds a minute with 240 alpha damage. That is the third highest DPM of any of the Tier 8 medium tanks. The highest being the Object 416, which pretty much gets a T-54's gun at Tier 8. But if you're not sure about what the Object 416 is, it's more like a tank destroyer than a medium tank, and it has some serious issues that make it very inflexible. Not to mention the fact that its turret can't even turn 90 degrees to the left or the right. So I'm using a sneaky, well, not really a sneaky position here, a fairly straightforward position. Since they've changed Sand River Assault to having this big open area here for medium tanks, I really feel like this is the daddy location on this map. Not only can you move over here to get shots across to the east, you can also control shots down onto this Tiger P over here from this location. And by using the position that you saw me using here, we can also dominate any tanks that try and sneak in. And if the enemies do want to come down in here, they better be darn stronger than you, otherwise you are in cover from the enemy. And you generally get supported by any tanks that might be along this location. So the great rate of fire on the STA-2 is really allowing me to clock up the damage in this game. Having picked up 2,300 in the 3 minutes, just over 3¼ minutes this game has been going on. And a couple of kills, and also extending quite a lot of view range for my team. I get slapped in the side of the turret, they're not exactly sure what hit me, but I'm going to advance out from that location because I feel like this game is starting to be more and more secure. Now when I was playing this STA-2, I think I grinded it actually. Do you remember the 111 mission set that Wargaming had, where you had to play a huge amount of tanks of all of the different nations and get a large amount of kills and a large amount of damage? Well, I decided that if I wanted to get a load of kills in Japanese tanks anyway, I might as well do it while making a huge amount of credits like you can in Tier 8 premiums. And so that's why I played the STA-2 so much. And it's pretty much the only time that I've actually played this tank. And I learned a lot about it, and I started to respect it a bit more. Now, the ground resistance buff to this tank wasn't the only thing that they did in patch 9.9. They also improved the gun accuracy loss when you turn the turret from 0.14 to 0.1. So that's quite a significant buff. When you turn the turret, your gun will bloom less, which is always very useful when you want to hoover up artillery in the base. Wow, lucky me there. I just avoided taking an artillery shell from the back and from the front as well, and that's good because I didn't have enough hit points to take a large shell from that absolute death bus of a tank, the Su-14 too. Nice couple of kills there on the artillery, secures our 5th of the game, putting our damage up to 3,600 as well. And unfortunately, I don't manage to make it back in time to pick up the final kill on the Tiger P that would have been a Top Gun. Before I was rudely interrupted killing those artillery, I was talking about the final buff of the STA-2 was the fact that the aim time was buffed from 2.2 to 2.1. And so in summary, they realized that they introduced this tank into the game in patch 9.6 too weak, buffed its mobility by probably about 10 to 20%, and lowered the aim time of this tank significantly, allowing it to use that wild 8.45 rounds a minute rate of fire, second only to the Object 416's 100mm gun and the Panther 88. Let's take a very quick look at the post-game stats before we get stuck into some more gameplay. So this is the reason why you play your Tier 8 premiums, such as the STA-2. We made 113,000 credits that game, and our ammunition costs were less than 9,000, giving us a cool 100k profit in a game that only lasted just over 5 minutes. When the STA-2 is top tier, its 185mm of penetration doesn't really matter. It's more than enough to rip through most targets that you will meet. And when you combine the excellent rate of fire with the significant aim time buffs that this tank has got, with 10 degrees of gun depression, you certainly have the flexibility to rip apart your opponents from pretty much everywhere really quickly. But it's not always sunshine and rainbows for the STA-2, it can meet tier 10 tanks. And so we're in a situation that any STA-2 driver would get chills from. 4 tier 10s on the enemy team, a handful of tier 9s, and a map, Ensk, where we can't use the gun depression, the excellent gun depression, 10 degrees, that this vehicle gets. But if you want to take your game to the next level, you're going to have to do well in these tricky situations as well as when you outmatch your opponents. And is going here really going to be a good idea? Yeah, IS-7 frontal armor, 185mm of nope. I'm never going to be able to get through the front of that tank with this penetration unless I elect to fire the premium rounds that this tank gets, the heat rounds that get 275. But even still, I would do 240 damage to him. I'd have to shoot him maybe 9 times to be able to take his vehicle out. And he only has to hit me 3 times. It's not really a clever idea for me right now to be duking it out with the tier 10 heavies. And seems like I figured that out right now. I think to myself, what am I doing as I drive in a very awkward fashion there? There is no point of me being in the town trying to deal with these behemoths with guns and armor that far, far, far outcompare mine. I want to be over on the east right now, supporting those tank destroyers and giving them a little bit of extra flexibility and cover to deal with the medium tank horde that we're going to see advancing down the east. Just because you've put yourself in a situation, a stupid situation that I was in, doesn't mean that you should stay there. You have mobility on your side, as you will do with medium tanks, take it. Unfortunately, those guys came forwards a lot faster than I thought they would. I thought they might still be back in these locations here, so I get caught out in the open, take a couple of hits, but I managed to put one into the Panther 88 anyway. Now there's an SDB-1 opposite me. That's a tier 10 Japanese medium tank that uses 105mm with an excellent rate of fire. I'm going to shoot through the walls. I manage it. Now he puts one into me, but I know that while his rate of fire is 7.5, mine is 8.45, so as long as I can get round the corner quickly, I can sneak another shot into him for free. And so effectively, I'm out trading a tier 10 medium tank there. I take 390 damage on average, and he takes 480. That's what you need to try and do with your tier 8 support tanks. You have to use the rate of fire on these vehicles. If you take a big shot from someone, make sure you put 2 into them. And play a supporting role. This Walker Bulldog just went absolutely ham. But he enabled me to get a couple of shots into the Panther 88. And knowing that I can shoot through those walls, we can also put some damage into the STA-2 there. In a game that looked like it could have been an absolute nightmare, I've already done pretty much average. I've done my health in damage so far. 1,492 damage done. I'm happy with that. I try and blind fire through the wall, but unfortunately for us, he was just a little bit further forwards. That would have been an absolute Neo moment there, predicting where that STA-2 was through the wall. We can see he's not facing this way, and I decide to shoot his tracks. I go forwards, but he uses a repair kit. What I was trying to do is to lock him down, and this is one of the most important things that you can do Oh, I didn't quite do it. Let me explain what I would have tried to do here using a free camera. This is quite important. If you manage to track someone and they've got the front of their tank sticking out, what you want to try and do is wedge your tracks inwards, almost the opposite way that I'm doing here, so you only expose your well-angled side armor. And then you should still have the tiniest of shots right in here that will enable you to keep them tracked permanently and also damage their tank as well. That's one of the key maneuvers to effectively completely owning your opponents. If you manage to do that, you kill them and you don't take any damage in return. It really is, that's one of the... There's very few ways in World of Tanks that you can actually do damage to your opponents without them having even a chance of returning fire. And that's one of them. And you can do it to any tank that you can penetrate the side armor of. We used our fantastic 90mm rate of fire there to rip apart that T-34-2, and I make my way across the map now to try and deal with this Bat Chat. We're only 2 tanks ahead. This game certainly isn't safe, and if I allow this Bat Chat to get stuck in to the rear of these heavies, it can be a disaster for my team. Now, going after a Bat Chat in a Tier 8 medium tank is usually a very, very stupid idea. He can kill you very quickly indeed, but luckily, it appears that I might have caught him reloading. I ram him, and I actually take more damage in the ram than I do to him. But because of his movements, it's very clear that he's reloading. And now I show you what I was talking about. But unfortunately, he manages to get his tracks back on really quickly there, and we don't manage to finish him off. Luckily, however, we put in the final shot, picking up our 3rd kill of the game. Securing one against a Tier 10 medium tank, a very dangerous one. From here on, we just accelerate to see if we can get a little taste of that IS-7. Is it that same? It is. It's the same IS-7 that we were dealing with earlier. Very low chance to be able to penetrate his frontal armor, but luckily he puts his side armor towards us, and we can sneak in a shot underneath the spaced armor of the IS-7. You want to make sure you never shoot the top half of the IS-7, only the bottom half. Let me show you what I'm talking about right here. If we zoom in, I'll show you where and where not to shoot an IS-7. So this whole area of the IS-7 above is very well armored, and you're an absolute potato if you shoot it, because not only is there spaced armor, behind it is a very well-angled surface. What you have to do, you have to shoot this area here in between the tracks. There you can sneak a shot in between the spaced armor of the tracks, the upper spaced armor, where the weaker side armor is, and that should allow you to deal with them, even with only 185mm of penetration. So a couple of sneaky shots into that Tier 10 Soviet heavy tank at the end of the game made this quite a good result. We did over 3,300 damage, and in a Tier 10 game on Ensk that only lasted just over 5 minutes again, that's a great result for the STA-2. The key moments of this battle were realizing I was putting myself in a stupid situation, and luckily I wasn't stubborn enough to keep myself in it. Relocating over to the eastern flank and helping my tank destroyers deal with the medium tanks was a great move. Combining this with knowledge of my enemy's reloads and taking advantage of the fantastic 8.45 rounds a minute rate of fire of the STA-2 allowed me to trade effectively, as well as playing a supporting role by engaging my enemies in the side as you need to in these games. Let's just take a very quick look at the post-game stats before we move into our final dose of gameplay. So another 112,000 credits in the bag, and not a single premium round fired in this Tier 10 matchmaking means that we get 100,000 credits profit, as well as a meaty amount of experience, 2,419, that will train up my SDB1 crew nicely. And so now we're in an even more tricky situation than we were on Ensk. Half of the enemy team are Tier 10, and I just noticed they had an extra Tier 10 tank than us this game, or derp matchmaker. Then they have a couple of Tier 9s, with a third of the enemy team being Tier 8 propping up the bottom. And I am playing on Erlenberg, a map which I don't really enjoy very much at the moment, if I'm honest with you. Now, why is that? Why don't I enjoy Erlenberg? Well, a long time ago in a version of World of Tanks far, far away, Erlenberg used to have different spawn locations. This base spawned here, and the red base spawned further towards the east. Now, what did that mean? Well, Erlenberg then became a complete camp-off. The team that spawned here would spread out all the way along this ridgeline, and the team that spawned here would spread out all the way along this ridgeline. What I used to like doing was immediately rushing over to the other side, hopefully being a platoon and hold off bravely against multiple opponents. But, alas, it generally went very wrong because you were simply overwhelmed. Now, however, what seems to be the meta on Erlenberg is that the team that spawns towards the south, which was encouraged to go along here and spread out along both flanks, simply just zergs their way along the east. And in turn, the team that spawns here zergs their way along the south, and then it becomes the same kind of camp-off that we once had. But at least it's not as bad as it used to be. I'd say the amount of draws on Erlenberg used to be probably in the region of about 5%. I wouldn't be surprised if it was even 10%. So there's no doubt that the amount of draws have changed, but I still feel like the campy nature of Erlenberg, why are we returning it that way, guys? Why are we making it so that we're turning Erlenberg into back what it used to be with this, I guess, counterclockwise circular motion? So I was very happy in this game to see that my team have gone west and put up a really good defensive location over here. Ouch, lost my gunner there, used my med kit to put him back into the play. So we haven't done too badly this game, at least until we made a bit of a mistake there and got slapped twice by the enemy team. We pulled off 3 good shots against tier 10 medium tanks, and trying to hunt in a shot on that IS-7 was a little bit greedy there. Luckily for us, this Object 140 wants to come get some. And we take out our first tier 10 medium tank of the game. So back to what I was saying about the fact that teams like to go in this counterclockwise motion, which I really dislike. And so I was happy to see that my team went over to the west to defend, because I find it a much more involving and exciting gameplay when there are 2 flanks trying to battle it out, rather than one flank just completely dominating a very limp defense on both sides, and then turning it into a camp-off over 3 bridges, which for me at least is not very fun. I wonder how, if I was to make changes to the map, what would I do? Well, I would probably make it so that the bases were split. I'd have half of the players spawning here and I'd half of the players spawning here, and then turn it into a nice kind of singular engagement along here. And then if people really despised fighting on one of the flanks, they could change, you know, even it up a little bit. Maybe one of your teams has got less medium tanks or less tank destroyers on one side, and you feel like they're going to need a little bit of extra firepower or a little bit of extra mobility to help balance out the fight. Thinking about it now, I guess, let's be honest, the meta currently on Erlenberg is a hell of a lot better than what it used to be. I used to almost want to just kill myself to get off this map back when it was became the camp off the 2 sides and then a 15-minute draw most of the time. So whatever we've got now is slightly better, but I feel like we're also returning it to the same way that it used to be, of wanting to just camp it off on opposite sides. So I think the splitting idea might work out. So the position that you see me using here in the STA-2 is very, very strong for tanks with good gun depression. These trees do provide you with a good amount of camo, and so that means that you can hide from taking shots of anyone that's in this location. And I've loaded my first heat round, I believe, of this replay, and so we managed to butter our way through the side of the Jagdpanzer E100 there. I'm pretty sure if I was using my standard rounds with 185mm of penetration, I wouldn't have been able to put that shot in, compared to the 275 premium round penetration that we have. Although you must consider that there's a big difference between the heat rounds and the AP rounds. If you didn't know already, heat rounds have no normalization and are very bad against spaced armor, whereas AP rounds will normalize themselves against an angled target for 5 degrees, making them better at hitting angled surfaces. But luckily our 10 degrees of gun depression and a premium round there allow us to engage this IS-7 in the side. And an FV215B 183 behind me manages to shut him down very hard. So we've got a platoon of E100s coming through, and oh gosh, it's a Tiger. For some reason I decide to shoot the Tiger 2 in the lower plate. I probably should have shot him in the tracks there. And it looks like this guy wants to ram the hell out of me. Good guy FV215B 183! He blocks him. Oh my word! And then the 113 also to the right of me manages to finish him off. Well, a big shout out to you. Who's the good guy? Cyprian? Cyprian? I guess. Thank you so much, Cyprian. I really appreciate it. That was a quality block there. It was a pleasure to fight along your side. So what you see me doing here is slowly grinding along the side of the Tiger 2 to push him away from the edge of the map, because that will enable me to use him for cover if the E100s come around the corner. When you're reduced to just a single slither of life, it's very important that I don't die here, because I don't want the FV215B183 to get rushed. But I still want to be in the game. Luckily, however, we have medium tank support coming round to take out, hopefully, these tier 10 German tanks. That E100 and the Jagdpanzer E100. The Jagdpanzer E100 is still facing towards us, so I don't want to go up there and engage him. Now that I see that he's taken out, I can start to harass the E100, who manages to turn his turret towards us. No, not quite. Now he spots us, turns his turret towards us, but we put a shot into the top bar of his tank. Picking up 2,700 damage so far this game. Looking for a shot on the Tiger 2. Even if the Tiger 2 rolls high, he might be able to challenge me. But the 185 millimeters of penetration on this gun was unable to get through the front of his armor, but it's enough to track him and get through his side. Will we be able to squeeze in a second shot with the excellent rate of fire? Yes, we can! Nice! Our second kill of the game. And nearly 3,000 damage done. I hear the E100 fire at our FV215B183. That enables us to come round. And I elect to track the E100, because I figured out when you've got one tier 10 medium tank and two tier 9 medium tanks behind you, as well as an FV215B183 in front of you, I'd far rather track that E100 and guarantee myself to get the 1,400 of assistance damage than have a very low chance of penetrating the side of his turret there to get 240 regular damage. Remember, assistance damage is worth credits, and it's worth experience too. So tracking targets can be a good way to increase your income in the games. Luckily for us in this situation, there is an AFK IS-3. We managed to put our first shot into the side of him. I just love the aim time on this gun. It doesn't feel like it's a tier 8 medium anymore with the buffs this tank has received. Feels almost like more like tier 10 medium tank gun handling. And there is a very big difference between having 2.3 seconds aim time and having 2.1 seconds aim time like the STA-2 has now. And if you're a keen player of medium tanks, you will know all about that. It really can be the difference of you taking a hit or being able to move in between your shots and not. And so there's a tier 9 Japanese heavy on the enemy team and a T110E4. There's no way I want to go over that bridge. I'm hoping that I can sneak in some shots in the side, but really what I have to do right now is to flank around as quickly as I can to be able to try and get up behind that T110E4. And this is how you deal with people camping a bridge and preventing you from get over it. You have to flank them. But of course, at the early stages of the game, when all of the bridges are camped, this wouldn't be possible. As we finish off the tier 10 American tank destroyer on the enemy team. So yet another cracking result for the STA-2 in a horrible matchup. 4,000 damage and 4 kills. I'll take that any day of the week. Let's just take a very quick look at the post-game stats. Ding, ding, ding! Jackpot on Erlenberg, 154,000 credits, but we did fire a few premium rounds this game. Still, 123,000 credits profit. Massive result in 7,412 experience for our triple. We got one of the special medium tanks medals. It's a LIVESTREAM medal, which is for destroying 2 enemy tanks or tank destroyers with a medium tank in one battle that are at least 2 tiers higher than you. As well as, surprisingly, a tank sniper medal for causing the highest damage at a distance of 300 meters. Big shout out to Cyprian, who managed to pick up 6,000 damage in his high caliber medal this game and managed to block that dastardly Tiger 2 that was hell-bent on ramming me to death. Nevertheless, when you are in the underdog and you're still doing 2/3 of the damage that the tier 10 tank destroyer does, you can be very happy and rewarded justly with just under 1,600 base experience. Again, giving a lovely tick of crew training to my SDB-1 crew. After grinding the STA-2 a lot during the last WZ-111 mission reward event, I think I have to change my opinion on this vehicle. Previously, it was super sluggish and the aim time was rather mediocre. Now with the significant buffs that this vehicle got to both its mobility and also its gun handling, it's a pretty solid performer, which might appeal to many of you that like the gameplay that you just saw, i.e. playing a supporting role, utilizing ridgelines with your 10 degrees of gun depression, and surprising your enemies with a high rate of fire and DPM, as I mentioned, the third highest of any of the tier 8 mediums. And so hopefully you guys enjoyed this triple helping of gameplay. I tried to squeeze in as many tips and tricks as I possibly could. If you did, or maybe it was just useful to you, please consider giving this video a like down below. It really helps the channel out. And if you want to see my full review of the unbuffed STA-2, then simply click through up here or use the cards icon in the top right hand corner. And let me know in the comments down below if you are an STA-2 driver and what you thought about the buffs that this tank got in patch 9.9. Did it make the vehicle more competitive for you, or do you still feel like it's a mediocre tank that you just don't want to play? And as always guys, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.